friends, my name is Kelly Dale with offthebeadedpath Thanks so much for joining me today. If you are new here, welcome. I hope that you subscribe to my channel so you can keep up to date on all of the new videos that I come out with. And I'm glad you guys joined because we are going to be learning how to make a fun new pair of earrings today that are going to be great all the way through winter. They are for a pair of snowflake earrings. So the first thing you need to do is you need to pause this video and you need to run over to offthebeadedpath and grab the free pattern for the snowflake drop earrings. These earrings are so fun to make because you can use any color blue, any color white to make them, and honestly they work up kind of quick, quicker than what you think. So let's go ahead and get those together. You're also going to need 12 size 15 seed beads, a size 10 or a size 12 beading needle. You can make this into a pendant or you can make it into earrings. If you do it into earrings, you're going to need some ear wires and you're going to need your favorite beading thread. This can be a 6-pound fire line. It can be dragon thread, KO thread, Mayuki thread, whatever you want. I'm going to give the new Wildfire Ultra a try today. This is comparable to like a 4-pound fire line, just a little bit thinner. So I'm going to give it a whirl and see how it does on these earrings. So go grab that pattern and then join me back over here so we can get started. So once you've got your pattern, you'll see on step 1, it says thread a needle with 2.5 yards of thread. Don't worry, you're not going to be using all of that thread at one time, but you're going to use 2.5 yards of thread on your needle, and you're going to work the center of the earring in an odd count peyote stitch. So if you look down at the bottom of your page, you'll see some boxes outlined in red. These are the beads that you are going to start the row with. And I'm going to walk you through this, so don't worry. Let me get this started. So to start off in those red boxes is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of my A color beads. Now I'm going to go ahead and mark those beads off. Now I've got them threaded on and ready to go. So now row 2 is going to be worked in that direction. We're going to be working back the other way. And we are going to be threading on an A, an A, an A, and an A. So you see here, we're going to pick up an A and go through an A, pick up an A, go through an A, all the way across. So I'm going to leave 1 yard of a tail, and it seems like a lot, but we're going to use it. So you're going to use a yard. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of measure out my yard here. So I've got a yard of thread over here, and we're going to work back in the other direction. So we pick up an A, we skip an A, and we go through an A. Put your finger on it there and pull. And you'll see kind of what that looks like there. Now we pick up an A, we skip an A, and we go through an A. Pick up an A, skip an A, go through an A. Now you'll notice that leaves me with 1 A here on the outer edge, and that's going to be our odd count turn. So here is how I do an odd count turnaround. You can do however you want. This is just how I like to do it. So I pick up 1A. This is the yard tail thread. So I take the needle and I'm going to come under that tail thread. Now when I do that, I'm keeping this tight against my finger, and the bead I'm adding has to stay to this right side of how I have this pulled on my finger. Okay, and now I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to pass back through the bead that I just added. So essentially you can see what's going to happen. The thread is wrapping around the tail thread and is going to pull that bead, pop that bead in place and hold it there. Now, as you work, this little tail thread is going to move up the earring. That's what we want. Okay, so let me grab my pattern here. So I can mark off those beads because that's what we just added on. So our next row is going to be worked back in this direction, and it's hard to show because it's this right here. So we are adding 1, 2, 3. We're adding 1, 2, 3 beads, just like that. So pick up an A. Whoop, let me grab a hold of it here. Pick up an A and pass through the next bead sticking up. Pick up an A, pass through the next bead sticking up, and pick up an A and pass through that last bead sticking up, so that now we have that next row complete. So I can go ahead and I can mark those 3 beads off that we just added. So now we're going to be working on the next row, which is this row here, and we're going to work back that other direction. And you'll see here I'm going to be picking up an A, an A, an A, and an A. So I've got 4A on this row that I'm going to be picking up. So needle. So we're going to work back the other direction. So it's 1, 2, 3, and then we've got our 1 bead over here on the end. This lets us know we've got our odd count peyote turn. So we pick up 1 bead, we go underneath that tail thread here, that yard tail thread. I go under it, and I'm keeping this pulled tight so that the bead I'm working with stays on this right hand side. And then I take the needle and I pass back through that same bead that I just added. And I kind of put my finger on it just to hold it nice and tight in place. And you can see this is what we have so far. So we'll mark off those that we just added. Now we're to a row of 3. So I hope you're seeing that you've got a row of, so our first row was 7. The first row we added 7 beads. That was our base row, okay? Then the next row, which was our, we're going to call it row 2, we added 4 beads. Row 3, we only added 3 beads. Row 4, which is the row we just finished, we added 4 beads. Now for row 5, we're only going to add 3. So one row you're going to be adding 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3. So you can see here I'm going to be adding 1, 2, 3 beads. So I'm adding an A, a B, and an A. So grab a hold of it here. Not used to working with thread this thin. Oh gosh. Okay. So we've got an A, a B, which is my white, and an A. Oh, that is not an A. Pull that back out. And look what I did. You see, I tried to just flub it back through. That did not work well for me. Y'all, look at this. I'm just making a hot mess. So, see? Now, here's what you do. After you're doing a million things like we're not supposed to do, then you just take that bead and take your needle off and just pull the thread. We try to make our lives so hard sometimes, and it's, Oh, just because we know we can fix it. We know we can get it fixed without having to take our needle off. But, you know, some of us are hard-headed, and it takes us a little bit longer to get that through our brains. Okay. Now, we're on to the next row. Okay, so for our next row, like I said, it is going to be, our last row was a 3 bead row, so this is going to be a 4 bead row. So you can see here we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'm going to do this row, and then I'm going to continue to work all the way until I get to the top and I finish this row here. And then I'm going to show you how we do these decreases to make this point. So once you get to this point and you've added this last round, you're going to go ahead and add these next 3 beads as normal. So I'm going to go ahead and mark off those 3 and go ahead and add those here. So I'm going to go 1, 2, and 3. Now, if you'll notice at this point on the pattern, we only have 2 beads that we're going to add. So I actually need to be coming out of this last bead that we added, this one right here, so that I can get into position to add those 2 beads. So to do that, I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to come through the bead right below where my thread is exiting. Let me see if I can zoom in any better. There we go. A little bit. Okay, so you can see I'm coming out of that bead and I'm going to come up through the bead right next to where my thread is exiting. Okay, now I'm going to come through the next bead sort of at a diagonal from the bead I'm coming out of. Down through the very next bead, and then up through this bead, so that now I am exiting exactly where I need to be to add those 2 beads. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to put in 1 and 2. So now when you look at your pattern, grab it here. I've done 1, 2, and now I'm going to have a 3 bead row. 1, 2, 3. So I can just turn right back around and go 1, 2, and you'll notice there I can't just pop that 3rd bead in place. So what you have to do is you have to pick up 1 bead, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to wiggle it underneath the thread between the very end bead and the one I am coming out next to here. So I'm going to pull that, well, pull your needle off too. Okay, and when you pull it, it's going to put your needle in, or your thread and your bead into position. But now you have to thread my needle back and come through the bead that you just added, so that now it's got your 3 bead row. So now we're down to a 2 bead. So I'm going to go 1 and 2. And the last bead on our row is just a single bead row here. So I'm going to turn around so that I can come out of this bead right here and get into position. And it's one of those things, it doesn't matter how you go through them, as long as you come out the right position and you don't see your thread there. So now I'm going to pick up my 1 bead and come through so that now I have that point complete. So you'll notice we still don't have our point down here. That's completely fine. When we start this side, or I start this side and I work my way down, I can come back and put that in. But now we're ready to go to the next part of the project. So once you get your center complete and you go to step 2, it tells you that you're now going to work brick stitch on one side of the piece, and then it's outlined in red. Now, if you'll notice, when I finished my project, my thread was coming out. This is my tail thread, and this was my working thread. But in step 2, it's showing here that I'm going to do the brick stitch on this side. So you have two options. You can either thread a needle onto your tail thread, or you can just simply flip your beadwork and it's there and ready to go. You'll also want to make sure you're coming out in the correct spot to add the bead. So this was the bead that we added, the very last bead. So you want to basically pass through the beads that you're coming down out of the first row here on the end, but you're not coming out of that very end bead. You're coming in one bead. So you need to be coming out of this second bead on that row. You actually have two options. If you come out of this bead right here and add your two beads, we're going to be working decreasing brick stitch, okay? If you come out of this bead right here, you would be working increasing brick stitch just for the start of this. So it does not matter. It's just if you come out of this bead, it is going to be decreasing. And if you come out of this bead, it is going to be increasing how we add that bead. My thread is already at this bead right here, so that is where I'm going to start. Now, I'm going to fold my paper in half like this so that I can see how my row is going to be. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to have 9 A's before I have a B. So remember, I told you I was going to do the decreasing brick stitch. Lord, I have lost my needle again. Hold on just a second. Okay, so like I told you in the beginning of the video, I'm using the Ultra Wildfire Ultra today, and it's that 0.004. So if you're using a size 10 needle, it just pulls right out. But hopefully I've switched to a 12, and I'll have better luck with my 12. So let me get all my threads fixed. Good gracious. Okay, here we go. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So for my first stitch, whether you're doing the increasing or the decreasing, you pick up 2 of the color bead. So I'm doing the A, which is called for in the pattern. I'm coming out of this bead right here. So I'm going to skip the little thread here, and I'm going to come under the next thread bridge. So skip 1 and go under 1. And then I come up through the bead right above where the thread is coming out. But because we did the decreasing, we have to make it look right. So we come down through the first and back up through the second, so that it fixes those 2 beads and makes them look pretty. So now we pick up 1 bead and come under the very next thread bridge that we have here. Pass through 1 bead, pick up 1, come under that next thread bridge there, go up through the bead, and we are going to work the rest of the row following our pattern, just picking up 1 bead at a time, going under the next thread bridge, and then passing up through the bead that we just added. All right, so I've worked all the way down so that I'm exiting out of this bead. But remember, we've got this down here at the bottom that does not have a point yet. So let's go ahead and fix that point. So I'm coming out of the bead here, and I need to be coming out of this bead right here. So I'm just going to weave my thread so that I come out of that bead. And again, remember guys, it doesn't matter how you do it as long as you don't see the thread. So I have a row of 1, 2, 3 that I need to add. So 1, 2, 3. So I've added that. Okay, then we have that row of 2. So I have to get in position. I need to be coming out of this bead up here to be able to add that row of 2. So remember, we've got to kind of do a turnaround so that we're coming out where we need to be. Okay, then we're going to plop in 2 beads. So 1 and 2. And now we need 1 little bead down here on our point. So again, we got to get into position. Nope, need to come over 1 more bead. Need to come up through this one. And be careful, we don't want to bust any beads. But that is the one really great thing about using this ultra thread. You don't have to worry about your threads getting too full of beads, that's for sure. Okay, there we go. Okay, now I'm coming out of that correct bead right there on the end, and I can go ahead and pop that last bead in place down here on the bottom. So now that I have points on the top and the bottom. So I'm going to pass back through my beads so that I'm coming out of the last bead I added on this new addition row. All right, so I'm here. And now we're going to work back up the row. So I'm going to pick up 2 beads, and these 2 beads are going to be decreasing brick stitch. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total A's before I get to a B. So from where my thread is exiting, I'm going to pick up 2 of my A's. And remember, I'm not going to go under the first thread bridge. I'm going to go under that second thread bridge there. Go up through the bead I just added. Down through the end bead. And then again through the bead I just added. And you can see I'm putting my thumb there to hold those beads in place. And now I'm going to continue to work this row all the way to the end. With that row complete, now we're ready to move on to the next row. But you'll want to pay attention because you'll see here, we're not going to start here on the very end. We have to come in a bead before we start the next row. So when you come out of the last bead on your row, there we go. You'll see I'm coming out there, but I need to be coming out right here. So to do that, I'm just going to do a little bit of a turnaround so that I'm now coming out of that correct bead. And just like the rest of the rows, we are going to start with our 2 beads. I'm coming out here. I'm going to skip this first little one and go under this next thread bridge. Go up through the bead right above where the thread's coming out, down through the end bead and then up through that bead again. It straightens it out, and then we work to the end of this row. With that row complete, we're now ready to move on to the next row. So this is our next row. We are going to work our decreasing brick stitch to work the row. Okay, so with that row complete, we're just about finished. You'll notice though, as we work down the row, we're not going to be starting here at this end bead. We're going to be coming in one bead to do our decreasing brick stitch. So again, you're going to have to pass through the beads to get into that correct position that you need to be coming out of to start out of that second bead of the row, and then we will work down to the end of the row. All right, it's really shaping up. We've only got 2 rows left, and you'll notice again, we're not going to start this next row here at the very end. We have to come up one bead to do the row, and then when you finish this row, again, you're going to have to come out here to finish that last row, and our last 2 rows are only A beads. With those rows complete, you now have the side component finished. So what I did was I took the thread and I stitched it all the way to the top, so it's coming out of this center bead here. This way it's in position to add the bail or the loop or whatever you want to add to make this into an earring. So step 3 is you're going to follow the same steps we did on this side to add that next side, and then all we have to do is complete it. So once you finish the second side of your piece, you can go ahead and get rid of the working thread that you had so that you only have the thread coming out of the top. So let's go ahead and take a look. The finished snowflake without the bail is right at 2 inches. And not quite, basically 1.25 inches there wide. So I love this. It's really great, like I said, for a pendant or earrings or whatever you want. So at the top where I'm coming out, I'm going to take just a few 15s that I have in my stash. I think I'll do 6 15s. And I'm coming out of the bead here at the top. So I'm going to come right back through that same bead to make a little circle. And then I'm going to reinforce that circle several times so that I can add my ear wire to that top loop of beads. So friends, I hope you enjoyed learning how to make these snowflake earrings. I absolutely love these earrings, and I hope that you do as well. Now remember, if they're too big for you to wear as earrings, they make a great pendant. Or if you have a little mini tree like I do, it would also make a great little ornament to go on your tree. So don't discount this as just earrings, guys. There's so many little possibilities for this component. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.